What's up, awesome people? This is Vincent X9 coming at you with some more BattleBorn basics here. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about, mainly because I feel like it's an extremely important issue for people who are just getting into the game, people who have not played MOBAs before, people who don't understand the concept, is the map as well as the zone. And I mean, a lot of people who play first-person shooters understand like the importance of a map, but in a MOBA it's a lot more important. And then a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, it's zones, you know, I know what you're talking about, you know, this is like the sentry zone, and this is like the big crystal zone and stuff like that. But that's not what I mean. That's not what a zone is in a MOBA game, at least. So first off, let's hit the map first. So the map in BattleBorn shows you a lot of extremely important information. It shows you where the big crystal is at, if it's up in the first place, which is extremely important. The crystals pop up every 2 minutes, so you can do that with a timer as well. But the map will help you guarantee. Maybe sometimes the crystal gets taken at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Then the next time it's going to pop up is 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So it matters when you take it in specific. It matters when you destroy it, or when the enemy team destroys it. So it's good to keep that track in your mind if you can. It's not something that a beginner really needs to worry about, because you can just keep an eye on the map. It tells you when the little crystals are spawned. It tells you when the enemy has turrets. You can look on your map to almost like see around corners when you're charging a sentry and you're pushing that at that sentry. You can see whether their thumper turret is up, their stinger turret is up. You can see whether the stinger turret in the tunnel is up near their sentry. A lot of different things like that. It also shows you where the thralls are at, which is, you know, obviously extremely important. There's so many things that the map shows you, but the most important thing, and this is what I mainly want to touch on today, is the characters on the map. It shows you enemy positions as long as that enemy is within sight of any piece of your team. And that's extremely important, because if the sentry sees it, if your allied minions see it, if any of your allied player characters see it, you know, you got a Wrath in there going in deep, and he happens to see like 3 people, they show up on your map. You can see exactly where they're at, as long as he can see them. So that is extremely important in understanding zones. And as far as zones go, in a MOBA game, a zone is essentially an area of threat. So if I refer to zones, that's what I'm talking about. It's an area of threat. It tells you, am I in danger if I stand here? Or how much danger, if let's say it's your zone, if it's your zone, it's how much danger am I putting the enemies in if I move forward, you know, or anything like that, you know. It's essentially just zones of threat and how they interact with each other. So for example, you have a marquee where the big crystal is at. That marquee is doing insane amount of damage to your team. He's got this huge threat zone. He's just lighting people up that step onto the tower area. He's lighting people up that try to chase his allies away from your sentry. And he's just throwing shots in from that big crystal area. Well, the nice thing about that big crystal area is there's plenty of ways to get to it. So let's say you have a Wrath on your team, and that marquee is on the enemy team, and he's messing up your team. Your Wrath jumps down into the neutral thrall area, and then takes the small crystals over and sneaks up to the big crystal platform. All of a sudden, now that Wrath is on the big crystal platform, and Marquis didn't see him, and Marquis didn't shoot him as he's approaching, Wrath now has the higher threat zone, since he is a melee character and he is now right next to Marquis. Marquis is very threatening from that far range distance, but closer up he does less damage. He still does a lot of damage, but he does less damage, and Wrath can definitely contend with him. He's got abilities to do it. He's got the knock up. If you knock him up into the air and you hit him a bunch of times, and then as he's running away you hit him with that slow and you chase him down, that's like Wrath's bread and butter combo right there. It is really, really, really effective, and good. The chances are good that Marquis will go down if you play it correctly and you sneak up on him like that. Chances are good that Marquis will go down, and then that relieves a lot of pressure off your team for however long he's dead. It depends on what time of the game, or how long into the game I should say. Could be just 5 seconds, could be a full minute, depending on how long you've been playing in that particular game. So the zoning is extremely important. It's important to understand how your team can push through and win a team fight based off of your zoning, or it's important to understand also when you are getting pushed by the enemy and they're pushing those minions down and they're hitting your sentry, why is it working and what can you do to stop it? And that's all a part of zoning. Alright, so I want to just take a look at an example of zoning on a particular team that's got a lot of pressure at the moment, and having a big example here of somebody who doesn't recognize zones, somebody who is going to go in at a very, very bad time. So that is this setup right here. Now you can see on the map here that I'm bringing up, you can see that Ambra and Oscar, Mike, Alani, and my other teammate, I believe it's Arendi, I could be wrong, they are all pushed up a lot. Alani and Oscar Mike are taking out the minions, and Ambra and her other teammate are pushing Whiskey Foxtrot out of the tower. That way we can start getting some pressure onto the sentry. A few of the enemies just died, so their Arendi and their Wrath are not even showing on the map right now, and we have no idea where they are currently. You can see that Thorn and Galilea are charging up here. They just came around the corner. In any situation here, Galilea and Thorn can stay back, and they can fire in, and they can help destroy the minions that are currently pushing up. You can see them, the green little dots right behind my green arrow on the map. So that should be their goal, is to take out those minions and not let them push to the tower. That should be what they're attempting to do. Instead, Galilea sees the pressure that Whiskey Foxtrot is taking, and she starts pushing forward like this. She goes way too deep, and so Alani gets a great catch right here with the bubble. All of a sudden, Galilea has nobody to protect her, and so her team can do nothing but watch her die. They take a few bits of damage, and then they just have to back off. And then we start to push forward and pressure the sentry. Now granted, we don't get any actual pressure off of that push itself, but they do give away a kill, and because that continues throughout the entire game, they keep giving kills at inopportune times, we can continuously keep up the pressure, and eventually we do win this game. Alright, I wanted to give another example of zoning. This one is extremely different because there is a lot of mistakes done, whereas opposed to last time, Galilea made the bigger mistake and the team capitalized on it. This one is not much like that. There are very many small mistakes made in this fight. So, if we take it in to this spot here, this is where it starts. I had just pushed off Thorn as Wrath. Thorn has no HP. She cannot contend with a fight. The most she would be able to do is snipe from afar. And since all of the people who she would be able to snipe from afar are full HP, that would be Ketch, myself, Citron, and D-Man over there. Those are all people that she can't really contend with. She might be able to peck them a little bit, but it's not going to do much. So our Montana, to start off this fight, had dove in and missed his he had missed his shoulder charge, which stuns, throws back people, things like that. So Alani here, taking that advantage, started pounding on Montana. He's a very big target. He was easy to catch in a bubble, so she caught him in a bubble. When she caught him in a bubble, Oscar Mike, who is near the neutral crystals in the center, and Whiskey Foxtrot, who is up on their tower, both started pegging Montana. And that is how he ended up at this really low HP. At this moment, D-Man, who is playing Miko, charged past our minions at the very start of the game to go and save this person 9 o'clock here, this Montana. He charged past them. His intent is to heal. Also at this point, our intent should be to kill Alani. Yes, Montana is in a bad spot, but if we can keep him alive for long enough, Alani goes down. So I move forward and start to attempt this. Now, a lot of things happen in these next few seconds. First off, one of our teammates, Ketch, who is playing Oscar Mike, starts feeling the heat from the damage that Oscar Mike and Whiskey Foxtrot are doing from the side. Next thing that happens is you can see 9 o'clock starts to move back to get a good angle on Alani. Unfortunately, that's not a good idea, since he's putting himself in range of Oscar Mike and Whiskey Foxtrot, who really want to do damage from him, but they can't step forward into the danger of our very close range team. So he steps back, we start to pound in on Alani, and unfortunately, the heals aren't strong enough to keep Montana alive, and Alani takes off as soon as she realizes that she is just in a terrible spot, leaving us at a point where you can see Citron here with Caldarius. He moved forward to try to take out Alani, and Ketch turned around to return fire to Oscar Mike and Whiskey Foxtrot. So unfortunately, Ketch should not have done that. He should have been on Alani from the get-go. He should have moved with the team and tried to take out that one person. But to be fair, he was trying to keep the other enemies off of us, which is not always a bad idea. In this case, it's not the worst idea, and it's definitely not the worst thing that the team did in general, since 9 o'clock here charged in, not only missed his charge, but put himself in a very bad spot against 3 range champions, one of which is Alani, who could lock him up for a very long time and let the other ones peg in on him. If Montana had played this just slightly differently and stuck to the wall, Oscar Mike and Whiskey Foxtrot would have had to move up into a danger zone to take them out, or they would have had to just concede Alani and let Alani die. As it stands, she ended up killing Montana. The only 2 people who were doing damage to her were me as Wrath and Citron as Caldarius, and we could not do enough damage this early in the game or lock her down hard enough this early in the game to keep her there until she died. So she gets away. So I kind of already pointed out the major mistakes on this team fight here, but there's always a ton of more minor mistakes. You can always do better yourself. For example, in there when I was playing Wrath, my cooldowns came off and I had my knock up and even my slow by the end of the time that Alani was fighting with us. If I had been paying the utmost attention to it, I would have been able to knock her up and then slow her one last time before she got away. We might have secured that kill in trade for Montana. D-Man might have been able to either stick closer to Montana or toss a spore to slow down Alani and then heal. And even Citron with the Caldarius there might have been able to hit more shots, or might have been able to blind Oscar Mike and Whiskey Foxtrot, who are firing from the side. There's plenty of things that we could have done differently. There's plenty of small mistakes that each one of us made individually. But the important thing is all this happened in just a couple seconds. You're not always going to think of those things. So it's just good to know your zones. That way you can know when or when not to get into these situations. And this gives a kill prior to 1 minute into the game, which actually ends up extending the game out really far. And we end up losing the game because of it. We end up losing the game because of the amount of kills that 9 Clock goes in and he feeds them, and our team cannot support him enough to do it. Maybe if our team as a whole had been a little bit more coordinated during that game, we might have been able to save 9 Clock. We might have been able to pick up more kills for him charging in there. But mostly, he had gotten so far behind with levels eventually that there was no way we could save him. And so we just had to let him go in there and die repeatedly, which is unfortunate, but that's what a lot of people do, is they start getting deaths and they start going, well, I really want to get kills, I'm going to have to go in to get kills, and that's not necessarily true in a MOBA game like this. The importance of zones is understanding the importance of when you do have threat to make a kill, and so it's a good idea to always keep zones and zoning and these areas of threat in your head so you can understand when you can make a kill and when you cannot. Thank you guys so much for watching, and respawn and game on.